Hello everybody, Big Planes here. Now before I dive too deep into this video on the XB-35, I want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to everybody on Patreon who's able to help support the channel. I understand during these difficult economic times it may not be easy for a lot of you guys to help support the channel, but for those of you who do, I really appreciate it. And yeah, if that's something you want to think about doing, I will leave a link in the video description if you want to go support the channel over on Patreon. So yeah, it's been like a month, 3 weeks since I last gave you guys an update on this plane, and though at first may appear that not a ton has been accomplished in those 3 weeks, that would be a little deceptive. So let's talk about it. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the general internalization of most of the electronic components. So in the last video you saw that the trailing edge of the wing, the part back here, had not been completed. It was still open and everything. And the challenge that I'm facing is that I have to fit the battery packs, the motors, the IR receivers, the engine shafts, everything in here, and maintain a bomb bay and all those sorts of things. So it's quite difficult actually. However, I have been able to come up with a pretty decent design. You can see that it's sort of a interesting airfoil design. I'm actually pretty happy with how it came out. Again, I'm trying to get you guys the best angles I can here, but I also was able to install and finally somewhat complete, again that's a difficult angle, the flaps. So you can see that that's just how they operate on both sides, and I'm glad I was able to get the flaps in. They're somewhat dangerous because you got to stick your hands through the propellers to get to them while this thing's on, but they are functional, and I'm actually fairly happy with how the airfoil on this one turned out, because that's the primary content of this update is the trailing edge airfoil, and actually I think it came out pretty nice. Now again, it's going to be sort of difficult to show you guys just how big this thing is in terms of thickness and wingspan, and obviously that's something that I'm going to show a little bit better later, but you can see that I did put a minifigure up here in the bubble dome right at the front. And yeah, so I'm going to demonstrate to you how the engines work, because I know the last video they were working, but they're working a little more reliably now. And the cool thing is that we have finally been able to internalize everything. So you can't see any motors, you can't see any battery packs, you can't even see the IR receivers. So this is going to be interesting to see if this works. So you can see that I can just turn it on like this, like that. Start this one. Yeah, so you can see everything is now internalized within the wing, and those contra-rotating props I had to modify a little bit, but they're pretty much working now. They actually work pretty reliably, and I'm happy with how that turned out. So yeah, that's really one of the main reasons I wanted to do this video. The other thing that I thought was pretty important was the centerline fuselage. So you can see here that I started getting I think this was a gun nacelle right here, and then this is obviously I think this is where the crew quarters would have been. I'm not putting that part of the interior in, I'm only putting the crew, the flight deck in. But in terms of up here, I believe there was a gunner back here and the crew quarters, maybe. I think there was also somebody right here, so I have to check that before I complete this. But again, this is just preliminary. Obviously the wedge brick is just sort of placed there haphazardly, but you can see that I'm working my way back, and from the bottom, let's see if I can get you a better angle from the bottom. Again, this is just sort of being held up with a support right now, but from the bottom I have started integrating the fuselage into the wing. So, oh, and these things right here, I know they might look like bombs, but alas, they are not bombs. Those are the engine exhaust ports. Again, it's going to be kind of hard for me to show this to you from this angle, but you can see those are the engine exhaust ports on the bottom of the wing. So yeah, that's most of the progress. And one of the cool things about having this little gun nacelle, I think this was a hidden gun nacelle where it on some models they just covered the guns up, but you can see that you can use this right here. If I can not block my hand, you can use this right here to remove the, oops, that came off. You can use this right here to remove the crew quarters. And again, I think I've covered this in other videos, so I'm not going to go too in depth here, but that's how those work. And again, pretty much full interior. I will cover this mostly in the final video. But yeah, that's all I really have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Expect more progress rapidly on this thing soon as we move out towards the end of the wings on both sides and start finalizing details. So that's all I really have for this video. More progress to come on it soon. That's it for this one. Bye for now.